So ever since I was about 12 years old or so, I became the designated person to actually find flights for absolutely everyone in my family. Meaning, whenever someone wanted to travel, they would say, Tommy, can you find me a flight? And the idea was, I felt like awesome because there was responsibility. People trusted me with their credit cards. And then I was like, I don't like this because people are calling me at 12 a.m. asking me, hey, Tommy, did you check the flights yet? They're cheaper at night. You know, a lot of those things are just fallacies. Checking it at 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. isn't exactly going to find you a cheaper flight whatsoever. So in this video right here, I'm going to give you 7 real ways to actually get flights for cheaper, okay? These are real legitimate ways if you want to save money when you're actually booking your next flight. Now, as always, guys, like this video on top. I also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. Now, the very first thing, guys, is for a very long time, I used to be a big fan of kayak. I just love kayaks. I had a commercial for it. It compared all the flights across the entire network, and I was like, this is awesome. But then my friend told me about Google Flights, and then I tried Google Flights, and it was just so much better. It's not like you're gonna find, for example, cheaper flights per se, but you just get, for example, a better experience overall. As far as, for example, you can actually see better departures. You can see, for example, the Explore page. We're actually able to see exactly, hey, here's the whole world map. See exactly where you want to fly to, you know, and it just has a lot more features than kayak does. And on top of that, one big feature that sold me was basically whenever I would be looking for flights on kayak, I would have to, for example, click on the exact dates, and it would only tell me on the calendar, hey, it's green for it might be cheaper, or it's red for more expensive. But whenever it comes to Google Flights, I'm actually able to see the exact prices for months ahead on every single day on the calendar without having to actually click on it, because that is just annoying, having to click the same date, see if it's cheaper, next date, see if it's cheaper. No, it just shows me all the prices right there, and that just makes the experience a lot better. Now, number 2, guys, is going to be do it backwards. What this means is basically most people, they have a date in mind and they want to find a flight for that date and that time, right? To that place you're actually going to. Whenever you try to do that, you are basically limited in the sense that you are limiting the flights to whatever you want. But what if you did it backwards? What if you actually chose where you're going on vacation based on the prices and availability? Meaning, instead of saying, hey, I really want to go to Mexico summertime, just say, I really want to go to vacation on summertime. Let's see what flights are actually available for the cheapest price possible. This way, you're actually open to finding a lot more cheaper options. That's the idea. But this does mean you have to be flexible on the places where you're actually going to go. Now, number 3 is going to be best practices. So for example, it is true that on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, you can actually find flights for cheaper, okay? On top of that, okay, here's one main thing. By the way, I'm not saying like check flights during that date, like that time of the day. I'm saying check flights that fly out or return during those days. They usually are a lot more cheaper because they have a lot less demand and so on, okay? That is the main idea. And on top of that, if you are flexible on your days just by a few days or so, instead of saying, I really want to leave on the 27th, but if you're open to 3 days before or 3 days after, you could potentially find some real savings, okay? I've seen flights where the difference is like $100, $200, depending on just, for example, just a 2-3 day difference, okay? Because weekend flying, like Sundays, they tend to be a lot more expensive than, for example, just like Wednesdays and so on, okay? Or even just Saturdays. To me, those tend to work the best. Now, number 4 is be open to other forms of transportation. Now, I hate driving to places, just me personally, but that is like an idea. And there's also an idea of people don't like layovers. But if you do have, for example, a super long layover, I had a friend and they got somewhere, super long layover. They exited the airport. They basically just went out, had something to eat, had some fun, then came back and then basically caught their flight. And they had a pretty good experience overall. I don't like layovers because a lot of the times you got to basically check out your bags and then you got to check them back in, and that can be annoying. But in reality, it all depends on where you're going, okay? And you can have day layovers. That's also a possibility. Or if this is actually a little tricky, right? So if you can actually find, for example, from where you live to another state, for example, and that's a lot cheaper, then you could always, for example, go from your state, take a bus ride over there, and then from there take that flight and save some money. I mean, the difference can be, for example, $500 or $800, so it can be worth it in the sense, okay? So always be open to checking exactly what you're actually able to get. Now, number 5 is going to be fly during off seasons. We all know that Christmas time, Turkey Day, all those like little holidays or whatever, they're always going to be high demand, always super expensive. But who's flying during, for example, February, or like after January, like late January, or for example, May time, you know, like early November? More than often, not a lot of people are. But whenever you get summer times or September time, people actually returning back to school or whatever, or December and early on in January because you gotta go to work, the answer is those flights tend to be more expensive. So if you check off seasons and you're actually able to travel during that time, you can actually find flights for a lot cheaper. Now, number 6, by the way, I was actually able to book my flight to Tampa, I think last year during February, for a very cheap price. Like from New York to Tampa, it was super cheap. Okay, now you have, for example, number 6, which is going to be set fare alerts. Now, because flights tend to change, like not just, for example, on a daily basis, but like on an hourly basis, you could always just set, for example, different alerts for different prices, different flights, and so on. So this way you get notified to your phone, notified to your email exactly whenever a flight is available for the price you're actually able to afford. And yes, you can do this via Google Flights. So it's just a fun way, or a good way to see. And by the way, here's one tactic I use every now and then, and it does work sometimes. Like if I see a flight available for a certain price and I know what airline it is, I'll also go to the actual airline and I'll type in that same flight and date. And sometimes if you go directly through the actual airline, you can actually find it for a little discount. Sometimes, okay? Now, by the way, there's also a law where we're actually allowed to return like any ticket, get a refund for it within 24 hours. So if you find a flight that's actually super cheap and you can book it right then, and you have 24 hours to kind of figure out, do I want to keep it? Do I not want to keep it? Does this make sense? Does it make sense? That's always available because you do have the right to get a refund within 24 hours. Now, the last one is going to be FlyLite, okay? I know people that want to go on vacation, but they want to bring their whole closet with them. That's not a good idea. And me personally, I'll be honest, I don't even know how to pack correctly because it always feels like I just pack all the things that I don't need. But there are a lot of like blogs and tutorials on YouTube and how to pack everything just in a carry-on and just, for example, in a book bag. Because more than often, whether you're flying Delta, whether you're flying, for example, JetBlue doesn't allow check bags anymore because now they're having you pay for it. And then Spirit, let's not even talk about them. But you know, a lot of these places, they don't allow check bags anymore. Well, not like, well, carry-on bags, that's what I mean, okay? But if you could fit like all your stuff in a carry-on and you can actually get a transportation, like an actual travel book bag, that is going to help massively. Not your book bag for school, but an actual travel book bag that has, for example, different compartments in there to make you fit everything you absolutely need. This way, if you're going to be traveling, like, you don't have to pay for a check bag, and that's automatically 50 bucks saved, but it also allows you to get different layover flights because now you're able to just travel around with a little like carry-on bag and a book bag, and you're able to see more things if you do have a long layover and don't have to worry about checking bags right back into the airport. It's going to be, for example, a longer process. Guys, these are 7 ways to go out there and save some money when you're actually trying to book a flight. But my favorite way to save money to book a flight is literally just save money to be able to book the flight you want to book. Don't get into debt. Don't get on a credit card. Don't fall for the bonuses. Don't get into debt to travel because you have fun and then you come back home and you got to pay back all that stuff, okay? So my advice is, okay, a fun little thing I like to do is basically, when you think about it, if you're able to save $100 a week for a flight, right? In 1 year, you have $5,200. That's a lot of money, by the way. But if you're just able to do, for example, even like $30 a week, well, in 1 year, you have, for example, $1,500. Okay, that's a good amount of money for some flights, for your stay, for the food, for everything. So remember, just save your money to go on flights and don't get into a bunch of debt while you're trying to have fun. That's my advice. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, comment down below made it so I know you made it all the way to the end. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you're notified. I have more videos like this on the way. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. Click subscribe. And as always, long-term team officially out.